NACN.
Beneath the surface.
NACN.
Beneath the surface.
So hi guys, my name is Alana and I'm here as part of the NACN Young Reporters Group. Today I'm joined with Robert Foster, who is a UUP councillor for the area, and we're going to be talking about the issue of the high-rise flats. So the first question is about the cost of demolition versus the cost of refurbishment. Do you think it's more effective in morale to refurbish or better to demolish?
I think cost shouldn't actually come into it, and thanks very much for having me on, because it's the topic that's very, very prevalent at the minute. And whenever you speak with a housing executive and they come out with figures like it's 2.5 million to refurbish versus 1.9 million to demolish, there has to be a trade-off here in people's lives and people's homes. There has to be a trade-off with the green economy as well, because the carbon footprint sustained from knocking down and demolishing a block of flats, what it creates and what you replace them with, has to be balanced perfectly. I just believe that the figure of 1.9 million for demolition versus 2.5 million for refurbishment, which is going to give one-bedroom flats, which are unheard of around the area. The bedroom tax coming in, there's going to be more and more. That's the biggest waiting list there is for one-bedroom flats. So on the cost of demolition, I just believe that the cost shouldn't come into it. And in real terms, it's negligible. £600,000 to make them. You could future-proof these. You could put battery storage into it. You could have fire detection, which a local company called Moscow have actually doing in the UK now. So on the cladding side, they're building in fire detection. They're putting in battery storage, which makes it more energy efficient. You could put in so much more into them. I think you can make, around the UK, other councils and authorities are actually refurbishing tower blocks, not knocking them down. And you only have to look at private apartments. Private apartments across the whole of the UK are high rise. The Oval Tower in Belfast is a prime example. People like to live in these type of places.
Perfect, thank you. So you just feel that, it should be, what's the word, refurbished more so than just getting rid of them, because obviously there is a social housing kind of backlog. Mm-hmm. And these, one-bedroom flats could be used, especially for a lot of young people who are seeking, social housing at the minute and aren't able to get that. Have you spoken personally to the residents? Oh, sorry.
Yes. Okay. These things happen on Zoom. It's usually dogs barking and things like that. But yes, I have spoken to the residents. So we've been on. We had a public meeting just before lockdown, funny enough, with the residents in the Dunani Centre, and then we had a Zoom with the housing executive, which was other local councillors, myself, Billy Webb, Paula Bradley, who's the MLA for the area from DUP, and the housing executive officers and a contingent of local residents as well. So yes, we have spoken, and as I keep saying to people, not one person has ever told me they want out of these multi-storey flats. Nobody's ever come in and knocking my door down and saying, Robert, get me out of these places. It's quite the reverse. Whenever you ask, people always say, is there no multis available? So it's a desirable housing. It's safe, it's secure, and it does have a nice view as well too. People don't, until you're actually in it and see it, it does have a nice view. So I just believe that people really do want to live here, and the residents tell me they want to live here. So it's not even me believing. People are telling me they want to live here.
No, I totally understand. Like, we have a lot of high-rise flats down here in Portadown, and there is almost that like community element in living just like next door or sharing a ceiling with your neighbours and stuff. So that kind of does lead on to the next question. Will the displaced locals be rehoused locally with minimal displacement, or what is actually going to happen to the people that are living in these?
Well, I've asked that question as well, and the social housing need in the area is colossal, as you probably have gathered. Yeah. There's over 500 families in the area who require housing before the displacement of the people who are in these. So when I raised the question, whenever we had the housing executive at council, I asked, have they factored into their figures going forward the displacement of these people? What they actually said was that the potential housing on the former Newton Abbey High School site was to accommodate people from the multi-stories. I found phenomenal, because have 500 odd families who already need housing without adding the other 3 tower blocks. You're talking another 150 families to that waiting list, which is already huge. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to me. And I have asked this question, and what the biggest thing with me is if and when, and I hope they don't, and I will keep fighting that they don't knock Monkscool down, that you can't build in Monkscool until you demolish Abbotscool. So there can be no houses built on this actual site until Abbotscool is demolished, which doesn't have a business case to be demolished yet. So if Monkscool comes down, it'll lie vacant, as so many other areas in Rathcoole have done for years. When they demolished the banana flats, they laid derelict, the ground lay empty for 25, 30 years. They did the same in Rathmullen Drive. So you're going to have the same here, where you're going to take away the tower block, leave a vacant ground until such times, if ever, you get the other one demolished. So to me, it doesn't make sense. They have just used demolition, made their business plan to get demolition instead of starting the other way around, going, what do we save these, or what's the best scenario? Demolition is just what they have in mind, and they've made everything to suit that agenda.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And again, like you have said that you are fighting, for the people of these flats. What exactly kind of have you done to stand with the locals who want these to remain?
Well, obviously this is a devolved matter on housing, and so that would be the Department of Communities. But my party colleague, Andy Allen MLA, who's the MLA for East Belfast, I had Andy raise various questions with the Minister, which was Deirdre Hargey, and asked for a meeting on these. Now, Andy got a Freedom of Information request. It was last year, and we got all the answers back. And basically, it was the same thing. The business case is done, get on with it type thing, and actually refused to meet with myself and any other people who would have genuine concerns about these being demolished. So once again, it just appears that people's views are not being taken into consideration. I spoke with the Chief Executive of the Housing Executive, because people need to understand that this is not a local decision. This isn't made in Ranelagh House in Rathcoole. This is made at the highest echelons of the Housing Executive. So we have lobbied with Chief Executive, Mr. Clark Bailey. We've got nowhere. We've had cross-party discussions, and this is one thing that united all parties, is to keep these multi-storey flats. So we have done everything, and when I say everything, there's always something else you can do. But at this point in time, I'm at a loss to see what it is. But we will keep searching and try and engage and see what we can do to save this. These iconic, that's what they are, iconic flats.
Yeah, no, I'm sure your constituents are very, very lucky, hearing that you kind of are so passionate about these things, and especially like wanting to keep this kind of spirit alive almost in these flats as well. Like there's obviously been so many people that have grown up in them, their whole life was kind of probably just like in these flats. So I completely understand, why you are so passionate about it.
But there's a Facebook page Alana has just started, and it's called Rathcoole Photos, and it's people sharing old photographs of Rathcoole, and some of them are actually so old, it's like over 55, 60 years ago, and the flats are being built, and it shows you them being built, and they have people sharing stories about what a great childhood and how they have come back to the flat. Maybe they've downsized in their housing, they've maybe had a bigger house, and they've actually bought a flat in it or something, or they may have bought one that they already had. So there's a wealth of memories and stories, and all positive. I don't see any, to be honest, that are negative towards them.
That's great. So one of the final questions is, do you feel that if they are demolished, that your party will actually lose votes as kind of like a collateral?
If they're demolished, always say this, that my job as a councillor, a job interview every 4 years, and people have the chance to say, Robert, you're rubbish, Robert, you're not. There are lots of things that I will always do my best to, and I will never be able to deliver on everything, but it won't be for the want of trying. Do I believe that it would harm me politically or my party? There's always that chance, and you really have to put the effort in. I'm a great believer if people see you are trying your best, because there are times that for the best will in the world you will not succeed, but you really have to try. You just can't roll over and say, this is happening, and you just have to get on with it. There has to be other ways. There has to be other avenues, and you have to exhaust every avenue before it actually happens. Politically, it's charged, because politics can be something as fickle as the day of the election, that something happens that loses you your seat. But you like to think that I'm not the type of person that goes and knocks the door just before the election. I generally don't knock a lot of doors, because I'm on my own and I don't really get a chance to do it. I try to put my efforts into delivering and working hard for people, and I think delivery people do recognise delivery, but there's always the potential that people will always think that you haven't done enough, and that's within their right. People have the right to say that you could have done more, and that's just basically going to be, well, I think I have, and I can't argue on that.
Perfect. And I just have one more question for you. It's not surrounding the multi-story flats, but it's more, how do you think that young people, especially, kind of like my age, 16 to 18, are able to get involved with like their local kind of contentious issues, politics, stuff like that there?
Very good question. And I think the vehicles for that are groups like yourselves, like NACN. I've been involved with NACN long before I was a councillor. Since they really started, I've just always been very passionate about what they do. They think outside the box, they deliver different things. And it's vehicles like this and encouraging young people to take an interest in their community, because it's the young people that are going to replace me and other people and hopefully soon, and have ideas of their own, because we need more younger people in politics. Because it's not about saying anymore that this is what you're getting and that's all I'm giving you. People have different ideas of what they want, and they express themselves so much better. Social media now is a massive platform which young people embrace and use, and are so connected, and they're so clued in, and they know lots more than a lot of politicians will ever know. And so I think I've always been a great believer that you have to engage, empower, and enable people. You have to come and speak to people. You don't just sit and talk loosely. You come and engage, and you listen. There may be things that the group have said to me in the past that I don't agree with at all. But you have to actually articulate their opinion and say, you know what, they've got a point. So it's not all about what I think. I'm a representative of the people. It's not my opinion that counts. And young people's voice, and I think it's engaging them at an age earlier than 18. You don't just wait until they can vote. You have to sort of get them into the frame of mind of political, and it's not all about contentious issues. Politics, some of the things I get are about dog filing and potholes and like that, and street lighting and dark paths and better provision for walks. And, it's not all about contentious stuff. It's all about making your community better. So I think groups like yourselves and schools have a big part to play. I was very fortunate. Politics was a very sort of leading way in school and debating societies and things like that. So, but you have to give people something. It can't be the grey man in the suit anymore. It has to be something that comes down and speaks to them and doesn't just patronise them, actually listens to them. Because a lot of the things that I would never have dreamt of the way young people articulate to me how passionate they feel about the multi-story flats, because one of the proposals that came early on was, could these not be handed over to a social enterprise to do the work where you would train young people as apprentices? And I thought it was a great idea, the refurbishment where you would have tradesmen training younger people to be electricians and plasterers and bricklayers and whatever else it may be. And young people need housing.
They do.
And young people, to stay in their area and to stay connected with the community, need to have somewhere to go. At this moment in time, you're just losing and hemorrhaging people out of the area. And sometimes you'll never get them back, because they'll go and make another life for themselves somewhere else, and they become disappointed and disenfranchised with the area. And they're the people you need to take the area on to the next level.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. There's a lot of young people, especially that I know, that have went looking for their kind of housing and have maybe been shipped out in the country or completely different towns, and they know nobody, and then they have to go and get jobs in other towns, and you kind of lose the community spirit because all the young people are kind of being pushed out because there's nowhere for them to go. But thank you so much for your time. I hope that people will see this and that we will be able to kind of vouch our story for these flats, because I am not from Rathcoole, but in the last few weeks, from reading about it and reading all the articles and seeing the other interviews with councillors and stuff, it's plain to see that these are a huge part of your community, and it's not fair that there's just some big businessman in a suit that's like, knock it down.
I think they get an opinion from somebody who's not from the area as well, and thinks, what, I've listened to this objectively. You could have sat and listened to all these arguments and read about it and thought, I don't actually see the rationale for keeping these. But when you're not connected to it and you agree with it, I think it's even more empowering. It's actually saying, hold on a minute, I agree with what they're saying. What they're putting up is a argument, and nobody can come back and say, and as I say, it's been cross-party, which is fantastic. This isn't just one person leading. This is all parties, and Nobody's coming back to us and saying, you know what, let's look at that. And that's what I think needs to happen. Let's take 10 minutes and step back from this and go, right, we've moved on since we made this decision. Is it still the right decision? To take the big man to stand and admit and say, you know what, there's a better way to go about this. Or woman, I should have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if there's any assistance I can be with the group, and I say all our councillors will be the same. We've engaged, all the councillors have engaged well over the years with NACN, and sometimes I don't relish going to it because some of the questions they ask are quite, as these ones are quite difficult, and it's not your normal question you get.
For you.
It is, but that's what you need. You need to get the questions out there that aren't the ones that you're comfortable answering, ones around very moral issues and stuff like that we've had to answer before, and not everybody will agree on that, but you have to listen and you have to put your point across.
Great. You see, I'm just going to stop the recording.
NACN. Beneath the surface.